LuckPerms is an incredibly powerful Minecraft plugin. And I don't quickly say that a Minecraft plugin is essential, but for LuckPerms, I would actually debate this. It doesn't matter what you want to do on your server, as soon as you install any type of plugin, you most likely also want to get LuckPerms. A lot of plugins out there even rely on you having installed LuckPerms. They don't even tell you need it as a dependency, they just assume you have it. LuckPerms has a big downside though. It can be quite complicated. It has so many features, and my LuckPerms videos are among the most viewed videos on my entire channel, just to show how many people struggle with this plugin. Which is why today I'm gonna attempt to make a complete guide about everything related to LuckPerms. I'm gonna try to cover everything you could potentially want to know about this plugin inside of this video. From how to install the plugin, to how to find permissions, how to use the LuckPerms web editor, how to make ranks visible in game. I'm gonna talk about how to get LuckPerms working on a Minecraft network and a lot more. My goal is that at the end of this video, you will know everything there is to know about LuckPerms, and you won't have to watch any other video about this plugin anymore. It is gonna be a long video, and I will split it up entirely in chapters, so you can skip to the part you want more information about. If you're completely new to LuckPerms though, I would highly recommend fully watching the video, as I'm gonna be telling you a lot of important information throughout the entire video. If at the end of this video you still have questions, do feel free to join my Discord, link can be found down below. Over there we have a support chat and a support forum, which are spaces where you can ask any questions related to Minecraft and Minecraft servers. We don't have a dedicated support team, so it is community support, but with 6,500 members currently on the server, there's a big chance somebody on there can help you out. Okay, let's start out with the basics. What even is LuckPerms? Well, LuckPerms is a permission management plugin, which in practice means that it allows you to create groups, which the community usually refers to as ranks, and you can then assign certain permissions to certain ranks, so that a player with a higher rank can do more stuff on the server than a player with a lower rank. If you regularly play on Minecraft servers, there's a big chance you've seen a system like this in practice already. You got players with a VIP rank, an MVP rank, then you got some moderators, maybe a media rank or YouTube rank or maybe admin, whatever it may be, those are all different ranks. Those tags show which rank a player is in, and depending on the rank, they can do different things on the server. Now when I say different things, I really mean things, because permissions are not exclusive to just commands, for example. A permission can be about anything. You can have permissions that allow you to set yourself to game mode creative or ban players from your server. But you can also have permissions that, for example, allow you to travel to another world. Let's say you have a special test world on your server and you only want your developer rank to be able to travel there. Well, that is something that LuckPerms can do. Now, you might think to yourself, Asasora, doesn't making a player a server operator already do this? And yes, kind of. But the vanilla/OP feature is very limiting, because a player can essentially be in two states. They can either be a default player or an operator, and there's not much in between. I know that there are 4 different levels of being operator, but that still doesn't really solve the issue. If you make a player on your server an OP, they can essentially do everything on your server. And if they're not an OP, they can do nothing. And if you want to customize this, even just a little bit, you want to get LuckPerms. Alright. So the first thing we're gonna do is actually download and install LuckPerms. For this video, I will assume you've already set up a Minecraft server that supports plugins, like Paper or Purper. If that's the case, you want to go to the LuckPerms website. A link to this website can of course be found in the description down below. Then you want to go to Download, and over here you will immediately see a bunch of different options. And you have the choice between Bucket, Sponge, Fabric, Forge, NeoForge, Nugget, Velocity, BungeeCord, and Bucket Legacy. 99% of the time, you want the Bucket version. Now, you might think to yourself, Kasasara, I'm running a Minecraft network. I have a Velocity network going on, but I want my ranks and my permissions to be synced across my entire network. Do I then need the Velocity version? And the answer to that is no, you don't. I will go more into detail about this later on in the video, but to quickly explain, when you choose a version, for example, example Bucket, which you can install on a paper server. You can, with that version of LuckPerms, manage permissions on your paper server, the server that people actually play on. When you install the Velocity version of LuckPerms, you need to install it on your Velocity server, so your proxy, but with that version of LuckPerms, you will only be able to manage permissions of plugins installed on your proxy. So Velocity, just like BungeeCord, they both support plugins. No Bucket plugins, but special BungeeCord and Velocity plugins. And if you want to manage permissions for those plugins, then you need the Velocity or the BungeeCord version of LuckPerms. But even if you have a Minecraft network that consists out of, let's say, 10 servers, you still want to get the Bucket version and simply install it on all 10 of your servers individually. Later in the video, I'll be showing you how to hook up all of those 10 individual servers to one MySQL database so that all of the permissions and ranks will be synced across all of your servers. With all of that being said, let's go and click on the Bucket version. Then what you want to do is drag the jar file you just downloaded into the plugins folder of your Minecraft server and then give it a quick little restart. Then after rejoining your server, you want to type /plugins in chat just to make sure that LuckPerms is successfully installed. If it looks like this, you're good. If it's red here, you might be using the wrong version. LuckPerms has no dependencies, so that is nothing you have to worry about. Okay, so now that we have LuckPerms installed, how do we get started? How does it all work? Well, in theory, you can do everything through commands. Though this is the hard way of doing it, especially if you're just getting started with the plugin. What I would highly recommend you doing is using the LuckPerms web editor. Now, to access the web editor, all you need to do is type /lp space editor. Simply press enter and it will give you a link that will send you to an editor on LuckPerms.net. Now, this is one of the most powerful tools that LuckPerms has to offer because they all make it so incredibly easy for you to use. So this is the LuckPerms web permission editor. Here on the left we got 3 different tabs. There is tracks, groups, and users. Now tracks, I will get onto that later in the video. For now, we will skip it. Let's go to groups, because this is where the main magic happens. Now something I want to make very clear is that LuckPerms here refers to the term groups, while a big part of the community refers to groups as ranks. Groups and ranks in this case are virtually the same. When LuckPerms says groups, they mean ranks, and when I say ranks, I mean groups. In this case, both terms can be seen as the same thing. So you can see we got one group here. It is called default, and this is, spoiler alert, the default group. That means that if you have no other groups, everybody on your server will be in the default group. Now here at the bottom of the page, you can add a permission. Now, what is a permission? Well, what does it look like? How does it work? Well, let me show you. When we click on this box, it will show you some available permissions. This is basically LuckPerms' attempt to scan every single plugin you have installed, see what permissions are available, and showcase them here. But I found myself that a lot of permissions just don't show up here, but some do. So this is what a permission looks like, and most permissions you see are pretty straightforward. So here, for example, we have bucket.command.tps. So what does that mean? It means that this is the permission for the command TPS, and that command is added by Bucket. Okay, so let's say you want your default group, in other words, everybody in your Minecraft server that has not been set to any other type of rank, to be able to use this command. What you can do is simply click, and there we go. It now shows up here. And when we now click on add, it will add this permission to the default group. But there are some more things you can change. So one of the first things you can customize is the value. By default, it is untrue. By clicking once, you set it to false. So what is the value? By leaving the value to true, we give the default group access to this permission, which on its turn gives you access to the /tps command. If we set the value to false, it will make sure that you don't have this permission. Now, you might think to yourself, if adding a permission with the value false makes it so a player can't use it, can you also not just not add the permission? And for a lot of permissions, yes, that's true. But some permissions in Minecraft players have access to by default. An example of this is the /help command or the /plugins command. It doesn't matter if you're an OP or not, or what rank you're in, any player by default can execute these commands. So if you want to disallow that, this is how you can do it. Now beneath value, we got expiry. Now I don't think I have to explain what expiry is. This just allows you to let a certain permission expire after a certain amount of time. And then next, right to the value and expiry, we got context. Now contexts are really powerful because it allows you to give context to a certain permission. For example, when for the context key you choose world, and after that you add a world name, for example world nether, and then you click on add context, you can see now the context is world nether. So what does that mean? It means that now, because the value is on true, if we add this permission, a player will only be able to use the /tps command inside of the nether. That's pretty cool, right? And by setting this value to false, we can also make it so that this permission can be used in any world except for the nether. Now of course there are many different use cases for this, but one of the most useful use cases, especially if you're running a Minecraft network, is the server context. Because the server context allows you to set certain permissions to only work in certain servers. Now right now we can't use the server context yet, because LuckPerms is not hooked up to any type of MySQL database yet, but once again more on that later in the video. Okay, so let's say this is the permission you want to add. We can simply click on add and bam. There it is. The permission is bucket.commands.tps, the value is true, it will never expire, and it will only work inside of the nether, meaning that in the nether we can now use /tps. Now this web editor has way more features, but the best way to show you those is by creating a new group. So what we're gonna do is here on the left, next to groups, click on the plus icon, and this will allow you to create a brand new group. Now here we can give the group a name. Now just to be clear, this is not the name that will appear on your tags in game. That's the prefix. The group name is essentially just the ID of the group. Let's call this group VIP. Next, you want to set a weight. And it doesn't really matter what number you put here, as long as you keep in mind, the higher the number, the more important the group. So 0 would be the least important group. We're gonna make our default group weight 0. So this one should be anything higher than 0. You can do 1 or 2 or 3. It doesn't matter. Whatever you prefer. Though when I put it to 1, there is no space anymore between my default group, which is going to be weight 0, and my VIP group, which is going to be weight 1. So if you want a rank in between those two, you might want to put this one to 2 or 3, for example. In my case, I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to do 1. Now next, you want to type in the display name. And this one, in general, I would recommend just skipping. I never fill this one in. There might be some use case for it, but if you don't fill in anything here, your display name will just be your group name. Personally, I think that's a lot easier, so I'm going to keep this one empty. And next, you want to fill in the prefix. Now the prefix, that is what you will see in game. When you, for example, join Hypixel and you click on tab, you see tags in front of everybody's name. Those are called prefixes, and here you can add one. Now these prefixes support color codes. And if you want to know what the Minecraft color codes are, here you go. Big list. These are all the different colors you can use. Now, if you have a Minecraft plugin installed that allows you to use hex codes, you can also use hex codes in LuckPerms. If you don't, you can just use the standard Minecraft chat color codes. So let's say we want to use gold. Then in LuckPerms, where it says prefix, we can type one of these N symbols, and after that 6. And that is the color code for gold. And after that, you can make your tag whatever you want it to be. So what a lot of servers do is add one of these brackets, then type the name of the rank, like VIP, and then do another one of these brackets. Again, this is what most servers do. You don't have to follow the crowd. You can put whatever you want here, but I will just be doing it like this as an example. Now, two other things related to prefixes that are important to keep in mind is, first of all, if you want there to be some space between your tag and your username. So once again, as an example, in Hypixel, there's a little space between the actual rank and your name. If you want that, over here, you want to add a space at the end of your tag. This is something a lot of people forget, and I don't blame you. But if you don't add this space in game, there will also be no space between your rank and username, and that looks kinda odd. Second of all, for this prefix to actually display inside of Minecraft, you will need to install some additional plugins. This is what LuckPerms says on their own website, but the first thing you need to do is install Vault, which is a chat formatting API that all of these plugins can hook into. So these are all chat formatting plugins, and these are all tag and name tag formatting plugins. Now these are just some examples. Of course, there are many more out there, and you can use whatever one you want. But if you want your prefix to show in chat, you need vault and one of these. And if you want your prefix to show in the tab list, you need vault and then one of these. Now, I'm just telling you this because many people forget that they need vault and another plugin for the prefixes to actually show. Now, I'll be guiding you through this process later in the video, so if you don't know how this all works, just keep watching. But okay, that's the prefix. Next up, we got the parent. And a parent group is nothing more than a group where you inherit all of the permissions from. Well, if that is something you want to do, you want to set the default group as a parent. So now the VIP group by default has all of the default permissions, plus all the other stuff we're gonna add to the VIP group in a little bit. And then there is the suffix. For those who don't know what a suffix is, it is the opposite of a prefix. A suffix is something that will appear behind your name. Now, most Minecraft servers don't use a suffix for a rank, but if that is something you want to do, you can specify a suffix here. And you can do that in the same way as the prefix. So just add a color code and then the text you want. But okay, we filled in everything we want to fill in. The only thing left to do is click on add group. And there we go. You can see the group is added. And it also has a few interesting permissions here now. So it has the group.default permission, which means that the VIP group inherits the default group. Then here we got the weight, which is currently 1, and then there is the prefix. Now that we see these permissions here, we can also copy some of them over to the default group. I want that one to be weight 0. The simplest way to do that is simply copy this permission from the VIP group, then move over to the default group, paste it in, and then change the 1 to a 0. Press enter, then click on add. You can see the weight automatically appears here. It also appears here to the left. The default group is now weight 0. And in that same way, we can also copy over the prefix. So right now, the default rank doesn't have a prefix. It is a prefixless group, meaning no cool tag in front of a player's name. If you don't want your default group to have that, you of course don't have to add it, but if you do want to add it, we can simply paste in this permission and change some of the information. So the one you see here after the word prefix, that is the weight. Now the weight for the default group is 0, so the prefix weight is also going to be 0. Now the VIP group may have a nice gold color, but of course the default group may not be gold, so let's change it to 7, which is gray. And then we're going to change the tag to not say VIP, but instead player. And after that, we're gonna press enter and then click on add. And now the default group also has a weight and it has a prefix. Now, something I want to warn you for right away is that this default group, of course, you did not choose this name. And in theory, it is possible to change the name of this group. I would not recommend doing that, as inside of the LuckPerms config, the name default is specified multiple times. And if you actually want to change the name of the group, you will have to change it all across the board, which is just a giant unnecessary hassle. Even if the ID of your group is default, it can still have a tag that says player. Nothing prevents you from doing this. For a regular player that's just playing on your server, they won't even know they are in the group called default. The only thing they see is that they have the player rank in front of their name, so they assume that the rank is just called player, even though it's not. So I strongly discourage you from changing this name, as it will freak all sorts of things up and it will be a hassle to fix. Okay, there's one more permission I want to add to the default group, and it is meta.default.true. Press enter, click on add. You might be wondering, what is this, Casasora? This essentially tells LuckPerms that this group, the default group, is actually our default group. Meaning that as soon as players join your server for the very first time, they will automatically be put inside of this group. This will happen anyway, because the weight of this group is 0. But still, just to be sure, I would recommend adding this permission to your default group. And in that same way, you can go to your other not default groups and type meta.default.false, which basically tells LuckPerms this is not a default group. Whatever you do, never give this group to any new player. Again, it shouldn't do it anyway, but just to be sure. Okay, that has been a lot of info already. And spoiler alert, we're not close to being done yet. But at least let's save the progress we have so far. We have a default group that has the /TPS permission in the nether, and for the rest it has a prefix, it has weight 0, and it is set as the default rank. And then we got VIP, which has no extra permissions at all, but it does inherit the default group, meaning that VIP also has access to /TPS, and furthermore it is set to not be the default group. I want to apply these settings plugins to my server. How do you do that? Simply click on save in the top right corner of the editor. This will give you a command, a /lp apply edit command. And all you want to do is simply click on this command to copy it to your clipboard, then go back into Minecraft and paste and execute this command in game. And bam, everything we just did is applied. You can see the permissions we just added, in what worlds they apply. You can see the ranks we've created. You can see the new group we've created. Just everything we just did has now been applied. It wasn't so hard, was it? Now at least you know how to use the LuckPerms editor. But still, even though we have 2 ranks now, we're not done yet, because our VIP rank has no permissions at all yet, except for the TPS permission that came with the default group. And let's immediately talk about permissions in general, because how do you get permissions? Where can you find them? How do you add them? How do they even work? Well, this is not as hard as you might think, because 99% of all the plugins you install also come with permissions. Not all of them. Like, there are permissionless plugins, or at least plugins where permissions don't matter. And usually, somewhere on the download page of the plugin, or somewhere inside of the plugin's wiki, those permissions are specified. So let me give you 2 examples of common places where you will most likely find the permissions of a plugin, while also installing Essentials X, because I want to add the /fly command to my VIP group. But of course, we also need the permission for the /fly command. So let's find it. First, I'm gonna download the plugin though. Simply click on downloads in the top right. After that, I'm gonna click on stable releases, and I'm just gonna download the core, which is Essentials X. Now, of course, you don't have to install Essentials X if you don't want. It is a core plugin that is by no means required. It is just a plugin that I personally really like. But later in the video, we will be using Essentials X Chat to get the chat formatting on our Minecraft server working. But of course, you can use any chat formatting plugin that you want. More on that later though. Let's install Essentials X by dragging it into the plugins folder of our Minecraft server, and then giving the server a quick little reboot. Okay, so back on the Essentials X website, we're gonna look for the permissions. Like mentioned, usually permissions can be found either on a wiki or somewhere on the download page. I clearly don't see any permissions here, but what I do see is a beautiful wiki button. So I'm gonna click on there, and after that, we don't have to do a lot of scrolling, because over here, like you can see, it says permissions. And when we click on there, it will take us to a massive page that is filled to the brim with permissions. So these are all of Essentials X's permissions. There are a lot of them. And that is because Essentials X just has a lot of commands. And by just scrolling down a little bit, we've already found what we're looking for. Allow access to the /fly command. That is what I want to give my VIP group. And it looks like the permission to that command is essentials.fly. Another example is Spawner Meta, a very cool spawner plugin for Minecraft. I made a dedicated video about this plugin, so if you want to check it out for yourself, you totally can. But when we scroll down on this page long enough, eventually... Hey, that's my video. I actually didn't know my video was on this website. Okay, anyhow, when we scroll even further down, eventually you will stumble upon, there they are, permissions. So these are all the permissions of the Spawner Meta plugin. SpawnerMeta.sm allows players to access the /sm command. SpawnerMeta.command.view allows players to use the Spawner View command. And the list goes on. Usually permissions are really straightforward, and many plugin developers just straight up put them on their download page, or, well, in a wiki. Usually they are quite easy to find. Anyhow, here we are back in Minecraft. Essentials X is successfully installed. And we now also know what the permission is we need to give to the VIP group to allow it to use the /fly command. So now we need to actually add that permission. Now, because we saved all the changes we made on the LuckPerms permission editor before, we just have to open the editor again. So simply type /lp editor in game. It will give you a new link to the editor. And when we open it up, you can see this is right where we left off. Now, when here under add permission, I click on this text box, you can see all the commands will appear. And when I start scrolling, you will see that all the essentials permissions also show up now. So LuckPerms is essentially scanning all of our plugins. It is checking what permissions the plugin has, and it will showcase them here. Most permissions show up here in this menu, but not all of them. So that is at least good to keep in mind. In this case though, I'm pretty sure the fly fly command is gonna be here. I'm simply gonna type fly, and there we go. We got essentials.fly, essentials.fly star, and essentials.fly.save login. Now this is not an Essentials X tutorial, so I won't go too much into detail on all of these permissions, but the star, that is something important to talk about, because a star can be really useful in LuckPerms. So essentials.fly, this permission gives you access to the /fly command, but it only gives you access to the /fly command. You can't use /fly on another player, because for that you need this command, essentials.fly.star, where the star essentially stands for any player, just anyone. But the star has some more use cases. Let me show you in a little bit. First, I'm gonna add the essentials.fly command, and I don't need any context. I'm just gonna click on plus, and there it is. Essentials.fly, meaning my VIP group is now able to fly. Now about the star permission, if I would to this group add a star, like just a star, nothing else, a star like this, I would grant this group every single permission in existence on my server. So this basically means you make a player a server operator. They are still not an OP, but this gets you a big part of the way there. And if you're gonna make an admin group on your server, you most likely want to give this permission to your admin group. So just for the funs of it, let's do that. The group is gonna be admin. The weight is gonna be, let's do 10. Display name, gonna be empty. Let's give it a red colored prefix that says admin, just like that. Don't forget the space at the end. There we go. And then the parent in this case is gonna be VIP. Add group. Bam. So this now means that our admin group has a very high weight, meaning it is really important, and it inherits all of the VIP perks. Because the VIP group inherits the default group, the admin group will also be able to use all of the default commands. So you can see how you can just create an entire string of groups that all inherit each other to eventually make the top group inherit everything. But if we're gonna give the star permission anyway, it doesn't really matter. And that is what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna type star, click, add, done. Our admin group can now do everything. Now, two more things we should quickly take a look at are the tracks and the users. Because what are tracks? Okay, we know what users are, but what can you do with them? Well, when we click on this little arrow next to users, you will see that, hey, that's me. Users is literally users. I do have to say that this user section is always a little bit finicky, but from what I've noticed myself is most users that have recently joined your server will show up here, but the list will reset as soon as you restart the server. And every single user that has a special rank will also show up here. Now, what is a special rank? A special rank is any rank that is not default. So right now, the only reason I show up here is because I recently joined the server. You can see my current group is default, and I can change my rank here. If I want to set myself to VIP, I could just change this to VIP. And if I now save it, I will be in the VIP group. Now you might be wondering, is this then the way to set players to other groups? No, you can do it way easier in game, and I will show you how to do that in a little bit. But this is also a way to do it. The reason I'm showing you this is because you can also add per player permissions here. So if I want to add a permission, for example, /heal from Essentials X, I can add it to just one player. The essentials.heal permission is not in any group, but I've added it to myself, and I will now be able to use it as the only player on the server. And LuckPerms will of course remember this, which also means that if you add permissions here, me as a user, I will always show up here in this list. Okay, so those are the per user permissions. Next, let's take a look at tracks. When we click on this plus icon, we can create a track. But what is a track? Well, a track is essentially a quote-unquote rank ladder you can climb. Currently, I don't have that many ranks on my server. But let's say on your server, you have a VIP rank, and then VIP Plus, and then MVP, and MVP Plus. Those are 4 ranks that are kind of related to each other, where one is just a bit better than the other. Now, what you can do in that instance is add all 4 of those groups to one track, and then when a player in-game is in the VIP rank, you can use a /promote command, so they will automatically go to the next group in their track. In this scenario, I could choose for default, VIP, and admin. So now this is my track, which means if I promote a default player, they will go to VIP, and if I then promote a VIP player, they will go to admin. If I demote an admin, they will go to VIP. I think you get it. We can give the track a name. I'm gonna call it a basic, and then add track. Now we got a track here. Okay, I've pretty much showed everything there is to show here. Inside inside of the LuckPerms web editor. So for a final time, let's go and save. Let's click to copy the command. Let's go in game and let's paste it in. And there we go. You can see the track we've created. You can see the new group we've created. Everything is now applied. Okay, so next up, let's take a look at some commands. I'm not gonna show every single command this plugin has to offer because most of them are just not that important. But I'm gonna show you a couple, especially the ones you need to set a player to a certain group. So the main command you want to execute is simply /lp, which stands for LuckPerms. We have of course used the editor command a couple times, but like you can see, there is a lot more here. So from these commands, we can create or delete a group. We can create or delete a track. We can list all the groups. We can list all the tracks. Because like I mentioned earlier in this video, you can do essentially everything just through commands. You don't need to use the web editor. It is just the easiest way to do stuff. But okay, let's say we want to set ourselves to the admin group. How do we do that? Well, what you want to do is type /lp, which stands for LuckPerms, and then you want to specify what you want to edit. Now in this case, we want to edit a user because I want to edit myself. I want to set myself to the admin group. So LP user. After that, you need to type in the name of the user, which in my case is just going to be myself, Casasora. And then you got a whole bunch of options what to do with this user. So you can clear their group, you can clone them, demote them, open their editor, show their information. You can add a permission to them if you want. So if you want to add a per player permission, this is also how you can do it. If you promote them, they will go up in their track. So that is something I could do. But in this case, I'm just gonna set the parent, which means I'm gonna change my main group. Now, after you've selected parent, you got multiple options. You can add a group, you can clear a group, you can show information. And this might be a bit confusing at first, but you can be in multiple groups at the same time. I can be a default player and a VIP player both at once. And that is what would happen if I would add a group. Now, I will let you experiment with that yourself if that is something that you want. I would not make it too complicated though. I'm simply gonna set my parent group, and my parent group is gonna be admin. So this is the command. This is the one you want to use to set a player to another group. This will clear the current group they have and replace it with the group you set. So for me, that is admin. I'm gonna press enter and there we go. Now another thing I want to show you is how to move along a player in the track. So when you do /lp user again, I'm gonna select myself, you can here do promote or demote. Now currently I'm in the admin group, so there is no promotion possible. I can demote myself though. So when I do demote, and I demote myself over the basic track, which we created in the web editor, then I will be downgraded to the VIP group. There we go. Demoting Casasora along the track basic from admin to VIP. And when I do promote basic, I will go back to admin again. So pretty straightforward stuff. Something else I just want to show you is when you do /lp group, you can select a group, for example admin, and when you do that, you can edit the admin group in game. So let's say you want to change the weight, or let's say you want to rename the group. Maybe you want to add a permission to the group. All of that stuff can be done here. You can also do list members. So if you want to know who in your server is an admin, you can execute this command, and there we go. Found one entry from one user and 0 groups. I'm an admin. There we go. Group.admin. That's the permission I have, and because of that, I'm in the admin group. There are many commands out there. Most of them you don't really need, especially when you're using the web editor, but it might still be good to experiment with them a little bit. Now, next up, we're gonna cover something that I know a lot of you guys are really interested in. And it is, how do you let prefixes appear in game? Because right now, I'm in the admin group, but when I click on tab, my name just looks normal. And when I type in chat, my name also looks normal. There's no indication that I am in the admin group. That is because the tag is just a cosmetic thing. It is not required at all. I'm in the admin group. I have every single perm on this server, but it doesn't show anywhere that I am in the admin group. And that is something we need to change. So this is again what the official LuckPerms wiki says about it. To make prefixes appear in chat, you need a chat formatting plugin. You can use any of these. And to make it appear in the tab list, you can use any of these. Now, earlier in this video, I installed Essentials X. And because of that, I will be using Essentials X chat for my chat formatting plugin. Now, just to be clear, you can use any chat formatting plugin that you want. If you're already using Deluxe Chat, or if you're using ChatX, or if you're using Stylize, then be my guest. You don't have to follow this part of the video. But I'm going to show you how to do it with Essentials X, as it is super easy. And I'm also going to show you how to do it with Tab. So back on the Essentials X website, of course, a link to everything I go to in this video can be found in the description down below. Here where it says Essentials X Chat, we want to click on download. Now to use the Essentials X Chat plugin, you do also need Essentials X installed. If you don't have Essentials X installed, Essentials X Chat will also not work. This is a dependency. And next up, we also want to download Tab. Now Tab is an incredibly powerful plugin. I've made multiple videos about it here on the channel, and it allows you to completely customize your tab list, and it can also display ranks for you. So we simply want to download this one too. Simply select a game version and a platform, and there we go. Now something we also want to download is Vault. Now this is really important, and this is a step that a lot of people keep forgetting. But you need Vault, otherwise nothing will work. It is an API that is required for your chat prefix to show up anywhere. Now, usually I get a lot of comments of people saying, oh, Kasasara, what are you talking about? This plugin is super outdated. And while it may look like that, it is not. It is an API. An API like this doesn't need regular updates. And even though the last update has been more than 4 years ago, it works perfectly fine. So simply click on download on this one too. And then once again, drag everything we just downloaded into the plugins folder of your Minecraft server and give it a quick little reboot. And we're back in-game. You can use the /plugins command to make sure everything is installed correctly. And if all of that is installed, when I type something in chat, like hi there, you can see, hey, it shows admin in front of my name. That's pretty cool. And when I click on tab to show my tab list, it also says admin over there. That is awesome. Now, I won't be going over how to customize this entire tab list. I've made separate videos about that already available on the channel, but you can see that the tag shows up now. And when I demote myself, in other words, I will go back to the VIP rank and I then type hi there in chat again, you can see, hey, I'm a VIP now. And when I click on tab, I'm a VIP there too. It works perfectly fine. Now, if you're using the exact same plugins as I am, you might be wondering, Kasasara, why is your name red here? That is kinda strange. It is not red in the tab list. That is just an Essentials X setting. If you want to change it, simply go to the Essentials X config file, and on line 27, where it says OP name color, you simply want to replace the 4 with the text none. Then save the content and it's fixed. Oh man, I feel like it's going great. It's been a long video. It's been a long sit, but we've now covered most of LuckPerms. There are just a couple more things to take a look at. And next up is the config.yml file, because there is some pretty important stuff there that you might want to change. Now don't get me wrong, most stuff in there you don't need to change. It is not necessary, but there are some options there that I'm pretty sure a lot of you would be interested in. So to find the LuckPerms config.yml file, you simply want to go to the LuckPerms folder, which is located inside of your plugins folder, which on its turn is located inside of your Minecraft server directory. Now upon opening the config.yml, you will see a lot of information. Now I'm not going to go through the entire config and every single setting available, because most settings you just don't have to even look at or change. But there are some settings that you might want to know the existence of. And on line 34 we got the server name. Now currently it is on global. And if you're running a single Minecraft server, so not a Minecraft network, you can keep this on global. But if you are running a Minecraft network, so a Velocity or a BungeeCord server, you might want to change this. There's actually a very good description here. When it's set to global, this setting is effectively ignored. In all other cases, the value here is added to all players in a server context. So the context we took a look at earlier in this video, you can start using server context by changing this. Now I'm not going to change this context now, I'm going to change it later in the video when we're going to talk about hooking up LuckPerms to a MySQL database to make it actually work on a server network. Now the next option is use server UUID cache. Now what does that mean? Well, when this is set to false, commands using a player's username will not work unless the player has joined since LuckPerms was first installed. So hey, if that is something that you want, you can enable it. Now next up we get to the storage method. And this is all something I will take a look at later, because this is stuff that we need to actually hook up LuckPerms to a MySQL database. Now another thing you might want to take a look at, and something that I personally really like doing on my servers, is on line 610, disable ops. So an op, you know what an op is, /op Kasasara. It makes you a server operator. But this can also be quite confusing at times, because LuckPerms of course has their own commands, and you can give a star permission to an admin group, which essentially makes you an OP, but you also also still have regular vanilla Minecraft OPs, which can be a bit confusing. If you change this setting to false, it will completely disable operators on your Minecraft server, meaning the /op command will no longer work, and every single permission will now go through LuckPerms. So LuckPerms is the only thing that manages permissions now. And I personally find this a lot easier and straight to the point than still having OPs enabled. Another option that we have here on line 692 that you especially want to enable if you're using GeyserMC is allow invalid usernames. If you're using GeyserMC, you might know that every single Bedrock player that joins your Java Edition server has a dot in front of their name. Now LuckPerms doesn't know dots, because a Minecraft Java Edition username can't have a dot. So LuckPerms will just say, yeah, this is invalid, you can't do anything with this player. But if you're using GeyserMC, you of course want to put those Bedrock players into groups as well. So when you change this setting to true, LuckPerms will no longer check if the username you enter is actually a valid Java Edition username. And then you can also change settings for Bedrock Edition players that joined through GeyserMC. And that is the last important setting here in the config. Okay, if you're running a singular Minecraft server, meaning not a server network, you know everything important there is to know about LuckPerms, and you can now set up your ranks, add permissions, make tracks, let your prefixes appear, and do everything else you would want to do with this plugin. You now know how everything works, and from here it is up to you to set up LuckPerms and your entire server the way you want. If you're running a Minecraft server network, you might still have some questions, because let's say you're running a Velocity or a BungeeCord network, and you want your ranks to sync across your entire network. You want to make it so that when you change your rank on one server, it will change across your entire network. And you also want to know how to add permissions per server, so that in one server you can, for example, use the /fly command, but in another server you cannot, even if you're in the same rank. How can you do that? Well, this is something that a lot of people struggle with, and I get it, because it is quite complicated. I've mentioned this before earlier in the video, but you would think you need to install either the Velocity or BungeeCord version of LuckPerms. That is not the case though. With these proxy versions of LuckPerms, you can just manage permissions for plugins installed on your proxies. But if you want to manage permissions for Essentials X, a plugin installed on your playable server, you do really need the bucket version of LuckPerms. But if you have a network and you got maybe 5 playable servers, how do we connect all of them together? Well, for that you need a MySQL database. Now this is a part of the tutorial you can't follow one-on-one, because I don't know where you are hosting your Minecraft server or what type of database you want to use. But most hosting providers out there, including the hosting provider that I'm using, channel partner AlienHost, have databases included with their Minecraft servers. Now I have made a video here on the channel about how to set up a MySQL database on your own PC. The video is a little old, but it should still work. Recommended though is using a database at a Minecraft server hosting provider. Now if you're still looking for a place to host a Minecraft server, I would recommend checking out my channel partner AlienHost. They offer incredible Minecraft servers with top-of-the-line CPUs. Or if you're on a budget, you can also opt for a shared plan, which is a lot cheaper. Through the building tool on their website, you can completely assemble your Minecraft server to fit your needs. So make sure to check them out through the link down below, and make sure to use code KASASARA at checkout to save 20% off of your first month, which by the way also helps me out along the way. Now if you are on AlienHost, you will have a database button on the left side of your screen. If you are on any other paid hosting provider though, it in most cases also has databases available, and you should be able to find them somewhere on your dashboard. Now what you want to do is simply create a new database. You want to give it a name, so in my case I'm going to call it LuckPerms, and the connections from I'm just going to keep empty. I'm going to click on create database, and there we go. Our database is here, and we get a whole bunch of information. Now this information we want to fill into the LuckPerms config file. So back to the config.yml file of LuckPerms, the first thing you want to do is on line 34, specify your server name. If you're running a network, you probably have a survival server, and maybe a minigame server, and maybe a creative server. You want to change this into something that is easy to remember that represents your server. So let's say this is my survival server. I want to type survival here. Then when you're editing the config file of your creative server, you want to type creative here. Now, after changing the server name to survival, we want to scroll further down until we reach the storage method. Now, by default, the storage method is set to H2. And H2 means local storage. And that is something we're going to change here. Now, before we're going to change this, we want to export all of our current LuckPerms settings. Because just think of it this way. Currently, we're using local storage, meaning that all of our LuckPerms settings, so all the ranks and all the permissions, are saved in a local file. A file inside of the LuckPerms folder of our Minecraft server. In a little bit, we're going to tell LuckPerms, hey, from now on, I want you to only read and write information to and from that MySQL database. And you need to completely ignore everything you've stored locally. But everything we've done so far in this video is stored locally. So what we want to do is export everything we have stored in the local database so that after we've hooked up LuckPerms to that MySQL database, we can import it again. Now, I know it sounds a little bit confusing, but essentially all you want to do is type /lp export, and then you want to give it a name. So I'm going to call it subscribe, because that is something you should definitely do. Then I'm going to press enter, and there we go. Successfully exported. So all the group data, track data, user data, everything has been gathered and exported to a file that is now located inside of our LuckPerms folder. Now it is time to hook up LuckPerms to that database. So what you want to do is first change the storage method from H2 to MySQL. Then where it says address, you want to enter the address. For me, that is this, the endpoint, the IP, essentially. So simply click to copy it and then paste it in here. Now you can see that by default, a MySQL database uses the port 3306. And that is also the port I have specified here. Meaning that because this is the default port, in theory, I could just remove it. Though if your port is anything different than 3306, you want to specify it like this. Then where it says database, you want to copy the database name, which usually looks something like this. For me, it is S239 LuckPerms. So simply copy that and then paste it in here. And then the last two things we need are the username and the password. Now, the username shouldn't be too hard to find. Here it is. Simply copy and then paste it in here, just like that. And the last thing we need is the password. So, how do we get the password? Like I said, it might differ per hosting provider, but at Alienhost, you simply want to click on this little eye icon, which will then open your connection details. And at the bottom, here you can see the password. Simply click on there and then paste it in over here, just like that. After this, you want to click on Save Content, and all of this information from storage methods to passwords, you most likely want to copy, because this you want to paste to every single LuckPerms config.yml file. So all of the Minecraft servers inside of your server network will need this in their config.yml file. And of course, they all need a unique server name at line 34. So go to all of the servers you want to have synced and change the settings in every single one of them. Then you want to restart every single one of your servers, so essentially your entire network. And then when you rejoin your server and you type /lp, you will see this. And when you see this message, it means that you've now successfully connected LuckPerms to a MySQL database. But because there's no data in the database yet, it will just say there are no permissions. That is why we've exported our local database though, so we can now import it to the MySQL database. Because we disabled server operators inside of the LuckPerms config file, we currently have no permission to even import anything. And that is why we want to execute this command inside of the console of our server, essentially giving us access to any LuckPerms command. So in the console of your server, you want to type lp user hasasora permission set LuckPerms.star and then true. This is the permission you want to execute, but then of course with your own username. And upon doing that, you will now get access to every single LuckPerms command. So when we now join the server again and we type /lp space, you can see now we got access to everything. And we can do lp import, and after that you want to type in the name you gave to your exported database. So for me, that's going to be subscribe, press enter, and there we go. Everything has been imported into the MySQL database, which means when I now type /lp, there they are. Admin, default, VIP, they're all here. And now all of those ranks and the permissions you added to those ranks will be synced across all of the Minecraft servers that are linked to the MySQL database. Which also means that when I set myself to VIP now, I will be set to VIP across my entire network. Now, the very last thing I want to show you today is how to set per server permissions. Because now, all of a sudden, LuckPerms is linked across your entire network. But maybe you want your players to, for example, be able to use /fly in creative, but not in survival. How do you do that? Well, it is time for the LP editor again. Press enter. Open the link, and here inside of the LP editor, we're gonna go to the VIP group, because here we got the essentials.fly command. And without any context, players will be able to use /fly on any server connected to this database. But what we can very easily do now is click here underneath contexts, and we can now add a server context. And when you click on the box that says value, all of the servers that are hooked up to your MySQL database should show up here. Once again, this web editor is not perfect. Some might not show up. That is why it is important to remember the names. But what I can, for example, do is type server and then survival and then click on add context. And right now I'll be able to use the fly command only in the survival server. But let's say you have a creative server. What you can do is set this value to false. So now players are not able to use the /fly command in survival, but we can just add it again. And this time with the context server and then creative. Edit plus, there we go. Now players are able to use it in creative and are definitely not able to use it in survival. And this is how these values can be quite important. And that is gonna be it for today. It has been a long video, but hopefully it helped you out. Do make sure to subscribe to my channel, join my Discord. Thank you so much, channel members. And then I will see you in the next one. Bye bye, see you later, bye bye.